Testing. Welcome back to episode 3. We're drinking some yerba mate. Don't ask me what time it is. It doesn't matter. This is Peach Revival. It doesn't taste very good. I'm not going to lie. One bit. That tastes not great at all. But it's okay because we are clean from energy drinks. Pause. Where's my clock at?
2 hours later.
Okay. We're clean from energy drinks. 3 days. No Celsius. Only yerba mate, even though this is the first one I've had in 3 days. And those little Starbucks espresso cans, which kind of eat. So that's that. Episode 3 of the idea. We've got some snacks today. So if I'm munching, I apologize. I've got some raw cashews, some blueberries, and some dark chocolate chips, and some true fruit. So that's that. Today we're talking about value, okay? We are talking about value add. This is something that I've touched on a little bit on my Instagram page, but I want to be able to dive a little bit deeper for, this is specifically for dance teachers is where this is going to be targeted at, but it's really for anybody. And I want to give a little bit of background first because I think that'll help paint the picture of what I'm actually talking about. So let's take this all the way back, okay? All the way back to my younger days, my heydays, some might say. I started teaching when I was 16, and I started dancing very shortly before that. And I was kind of joke, but it's really not a joke that I probably shouldn't have been teaching because I just didn't have any clue what I was doing. I didn't know how to teach dance. I barely knew how to dance at that time. So that's that, regardless. And very quickly, I fell in love with the process of teaching. I have a bad habit of quitting majority of the things that I start, and teaching is something that I've stuck with for, around 15 years now, and I've never stuck with anything for that long in my entire life. And I think there's a reason for that, and I don't know what it is, but that's besides the point. For another video, maybe. So I started teaching really young, really quickly fell in love with it. Started sort of progressing with the studio that I was at, going from teaching rec classes to teaching more competitive classes to then eventually running kind of the whole competitive hip hop program and setting all the pieces and cleaning them and all of that good stuff. And eventually I decided to start kind of branching out a little bit. I decided to start teaching at other studios. And remember that I was 16 when I started teaching, so it was really easy to teach full time, to have that be my main job because I was 16. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities, but once I got older and I graduated, that became a different story because I started having bills that I needed to pay for. Whether it was just small things like gas or food or whatever it may be, I needed money to pay for those things. So I, really quickly realized that I needed to start figuring out how to make money from teaching. And luckily I had some people to kind of look at or look towards that were doing pretty well for themselves as teachers. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of guidance available. There wasn't a lot of there was nobody like there is today that's sort of helping you along the way and giving you tips and tricks on how to, be successful as a dance teacher. That didn't exist. And so it really became apparent to me really, really quickly. I shouldn't say really quickly, but over time, throughout those years, that my value add was really, really important. If there's a bunch of dance teachers lined up, what is your value add? What is the thing that makes you more valuable than somebody else? Because at the end of the day, when you walk into a studio and you ask for X amount of money, that's an exchange of value, right? They're giving you that money in exchange for whatever you're bringing to the table. So what you're bringing to the table needs to be clear, and it needs to be consumable, and it needs to be understandable for the studio. And I realized that a really easy way to do this in my industry was, I dropped a cashew. Got it. Was to, get my kids to be good, right? If my dancers were good, and my routines were good, and therefore my routines were doing good at competition, that would catch people's attention. Other studios, parents, other teachers, other choreographers. So it really quickly, started to click that, like, okay, my mission here, my job here is not to showcase, necessarily to show that I am a good teacher by people seeing me teach. The mission was like to show that I'm a good teacher and show that I have value by making sure that the kids that I was teaching were sort of a representation of what I felt like I brought to the table, if that makes sense. Every single situation I stepped into, I sort of had to think about that. Like, okay, what's my value add in this situation? Because a lot of people are just showing up. A lot of people are just showing up and they're like, I have a dance degree, or I danced for, 18 years and now I want to teach. It's like, okay, that's great. But what is your value add? What makes you different than the next 18-year-old that comes through the door that has also been dancing their whole life? What is different about you? Because if the only thing that you have going for you is something that a bunch of other people can do or have done, it doesn't make you valuable in the industry. It doesn't make you valuable in your community. It doesn't make you valuable in the markets that you're taking up. So it's really important to establish, like, okay, what is my value add? Why am I valuable? Is it the style that I teach? Is it the way that I teach? Is it the results that I can produce? Is it the mixture of, or a combination of all the above? It doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't need to be anything specific, but you need to be thinking about what is your value add. And that goes for anything. Anything. The more valuable that you can make yourself, right? And to me, I truly think that you do this through experience and individual, like obtaining individual skills, let's say experience first, like you cutting your teeth and you spending time in the classroom and you becoming the best teacher that you can be at that point in your life. That experience is invaluable, right? And the skills that you acquire along the way become invaluable because, if you possess skills that other people don't have, that's a value add, right? A lot of people right now don't want to teach little kids. If you're really good with little kids, that's a value add. So then the question becomes, okay, do I really want to do this as a primary source of income, or do I want to do this because I love to do it and I'm really passionate about it? And both of those things can be true. But if you aren't able to sort of be flexible in some areas, then you may not necessarily be able to make it a primary income source. Again, is that always the case? No, nothing's always the case, right? Like nothing's absolute. But I think you set yourself up for a much better situation if you have a little bit of flex when it comes to what it is that you're capable of, right? And I'm not saying go, reaching outside of the bounds of like what you're capable of. Like don't teach things that you shouldn't be teaching or you don't know about. But what I'm saying is like if you don't like teaching little kids just because you don't want to teach little kids and you only want to teach advanced dancers, making that adjustment and being more open to the age groups that you teach is a value add because studios need that, right? The other thing is your value add can take a lot of different shapes. When I first started teaching, we'll go back again. Let me take a sip. When I first started teaching, I was teaching for, I think when I first started, granted I was 16 years old, never taught a day of dance in my life. I think I made like $7.25 or like $8 an hour. And at the time, and this is hindsight speaking, because at the time I just didn't, it wasn't like I was thinking forward. In that moment, I knew that that was something I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to teach dance. The semantics and the logistics of it didn't matter to me because they didn't need to at that time. Again, I was 16 years old. I was living at home. I didn't have a lot of bills. It didn't really matter. But I think that played into my advantage because I didn't care about all of those details at first. It didn't matter. I just needed to get in. Then once I was in, I needed to sharpen what it was that I wanted to be good at, right? I needed to focus in and be a sponge on like, okay, how do I become the best teacher that I can be? Then later on, raises occurred, and, some of those prompted by me, some of those prompted by the studio. But, you can't go into a situation, regardless of like, we have to distinguish between in-field experience and just experience. If you're basing your value off of just experience, that may not translate over to the best opportunity for you, right? You want to be looking at in-field experience. How much in-field experience do I have? If you don't have any in-field experience, you can't expect to get a super high rate because we don't know what you can actually do. We don't know if you can teach. We don't know if you can hold space in a room. We don't know if you can hold attention. We don't know if you can, correctly control the room. We don't know any of that because you haven't shown it yet. So you have to be mindful of that, and you have to be open to that if you want to get in the room. That's my opinion. If you want to get in the room, you can't just focus on right now. You can't just focus on how much money am I making right now? What is this going to do for me right now? You can't do that. You have to focus on, okay, first the question becomes, how bad do I want to get into this room? If it's 50-50, it may not be worth it. But if you're like, I need to get into this room, then at that point, you do whatever you can in line with your values, ethics, and morals to get into that room. Then once you're in the room, you be the hardest worker in the room. You be, the highest value add in the room. You be a person that fixes things. You be the person that solves problems. You be the person that it's always down to help. You be that person. And two things are going to happen. And you have to be mindful of these two things, and you have to be aware of these two things. Option A is the people holding the room, the people controlling the room, will recognize that effort, they'll recognize that value, and they will take care of you from there. Option B is the people in the room fail to recognize that value. You realize that that's occurring, and you take that in-field experience, and now you go somewhere else, and you enter the room with a little bit of a higher expectation. That's how you build. That's how you scale. That's how you go from teaching a couple of classes a week to teaching every single night. That's how you go from, low demand to high demand, is you create value, right? You can't just expect people to understand your value. You can't just expect people to, realize your value right away. Sometimes you have to prove it first. Sometimes you have to show what you're bringing to the table. Sometimes you have to, put in a little bit of that work first and then go, okay, now you see what I can do. What can you do for me? Right? I don't know. This is making any sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but it's also kind of the point of this show is like me just ramble about things that I want to talk about. And I think part of why this is popping up is just like me reminiscing more and more on like my journey. And I feel like one thing I would have done, which I did do a lot of this, but I feel like I would have tried to do it even more, is assisting people. Again, my whole thing was I knew where I wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to be. So if there was a room that I could put myself in that could potentially help me get there, I was going to take it. A lot of times, regardless of like how much money I was making or anything like that, you know? And that was how it was with assisting as well, is like if people asked me to assist, I was always more than happy to do so because I knew that it was going to be an opportunity for me to learn, and I knew it was going to be an opportunity for me to potentially meet people via that person that I was assisting, whether that be other teachers or studio directors or videographers or producers or whatever it was. And then from there, again, you use the room. I think a lot of people, see, now we're getting somewhere. I think a lot of people don't use the rooms that they are allowed into. I think that happens so often. People get asked into a room or they get welcomed into a room. And I want to clarify, when I say room, I mean like just some sort of space, whether it's a job, whether it's a studio, whatever it is, like the room being, the place that you want to be. I think a lot of people get into those spaces and then they close down and they do exactly what they're told, nothing more, nothing less. And they assume, again, that their value is going to be recognized. They assume that people are just going to see you or people are just going to be interested in you just because. It's not how anything works. You have to use the room. When I would go do jobs or when I would go assist people or when I would go to auditions, whatever it was, I talked to everybody. I talked to, the casting people. I would talk to the PAs. I would talk to the lighting people. The amount of time that I spent talking, I used to do a lot of work for a particular director. And the amount of time that I spent talking to the audio people and the lighting people, not only because I was interested in what they were doing, but also because I wanted those relationships. I wanted to use the rooms that I was in. Maybe one day I need somebody to do audio for me, or I need a lighting person, and I want to be able to have someone, boom, that I can call up and say, hey, I need you, or I need help with something. And that happened multiple times, where relationships that I made from using the rooms that I was in helped me later on down the line. So again, free work or low pay work or whatever we want, whatever it is, there can be a lot of value add there if you use the opportunity correctly. If you don't use it correctly, then it just becomes what it is, which is you getting taken advantage of. You have to be smart. You have to say, okay, this opportunity isn't necessarily benefiting me right now in this moment. But if I go to this opportunity, I may have the chance to meet this person. And I may be able to connect with that person and then, do something else with them later down the line. That's how you have to be thinking. That's how you have to be maneuvering in order to elevate yourself to the next level, is how can I use the opportunities that I'm given to create momentum and create work for myself in the future. If you do that and you get good at that, then, you're going to be unstoppable. You're going to be able to, achieve a lot of things that you want to achieve because you're able, again, to use the opportunities that you're provided. That took a little bit of a turn, but in the best way possible. And really was like a lot of what I was trying to talk about in this episode. Again, episode 3. I can't believe we're on episode 3 already. And I hope you guys are liking this show. I hope you guys like the format. I like it because it's low stress. I can just eat my snacks, sip my drinks, and we can just have a chat, That's my spiel. I think that's pretty much it. That's really what I wanted to cover, is just like, what's your value add? I tell dancers a lot, like, in a room full of really great dancers, what makes you greater? What's the thing that separates you? Because you're going to be in a lot of those rooms where there's incredible people. What makes you different? What sets you apart? It isn't always a skill thing. Sometimes it's a communication thing. Sometimes it's a body language thing. Sometimes it's just a confidence thing overall. So, start thinking about that. Start thinking about what is your thing. What's the thing that separates you from everybody else? And what's your value? Add value to the situations you're in. Take value away for yourself. That's the formula. If you do that, you're going to be in a lot better position. I guarantee you that. This is IDEA episode 3, y'all. I hope you enjoy this. Don't forget, you can follow me at Hey It's Pickett. Artists Who Eat is the the No Starving Artists page on Instagram, nsadance.com. You can find out all about No Starving Artist there. And check out the podcast as well, No Starving Artist Podcast. Definitely a different vibe, but a lot of quality information there as well. And I'm definitely rambling at this point, so we'll see you in the next episode.